Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing something completely different. This is a video which I have never done on my channel before. You can probably tell by the title that it is all about books. I feel like I should give a bit of a background. I am a huge book lover. I try and read as much as I can. I wish that I read more, but I absolutely love books. I studied English literature at university, so books has always kind of been, a big passion of mine alongside fashion and whatnot. I also work in the kind of book industry, if you like, so I read a lot because of that, and I also have a lot of books because of that. I get an awful lot of book proofs and things like that through, so I have a lot of books. So I thought today, because of that, I would do almost like a book haul and also like a summer reading book list, if you like, that I can't wait to read some of these titles, and also maybe give you a few ideas for your summer holidays, or if you just want to start reading a lot more, and also just kind of give you an idea what is on the market. So without further ado, I have three piles here of books that I want to get through, so let's get started. Okay, so the first title I have read is called Penguin Bloom. I picked this up in a bookshop, and honestly I read it in a night. It is just beautiful. I told my mum to read it, I think she did and really enjoyed it. This is the thing, I don't want to really give anything away in these books, but I feel like you need a bit of background as to why I would recommend it. It's basically about a bird which comes into a family. They rescue it, it comes into a family who really need that help and that love, and it's just heartwarming. It's so beautiful, and what's more, the guy who, well, he wrote it, but I mean he also is a photographer, so the pictures in this are just, they're beautiful, they're so lovely, they're funny, they're, as I said, they're heartwarming, they're just, it's beautiful. It's a really lovely book, and certainly something that I would read again as well. I mean, it's horribly sad, but it's kind of, it's counteracted with the happiness that this bird brings to the family. So I would highly recommend this if you can get a copy of it. As I said, it's easy to read, you read it in a night, it's not text heavy, but it's just the pictures and the story, and it's beautiful. So I'd highly recommend this one. Okay, let's get on to a few more coffee table books. I really wanted to show you this one. This is called Wild Garden Weekends. Now this Wild brand, or I'm not sure, there's lots of them. Oh, Wild Things Publishing. I have collected quite a few of these now because I absolutely love them. There's wild kind of different regions in England, so you can get one for Norfolk and Suffolk, and then probably for, lots of other counties in England, and it basically gives you a list and a really kind of picture heavy rundown of the places in England and also abroad that you should visit for certain reasons. So I've just picked up one for wild swimming in Italy. Oh my god, it looks amazing. It basically gives you all the destinations in Italy done by region and the places that are the best to swim kind of in the wild, so lakes and rivers and all that. It's beautiful. But this one is about weekends in England, which are just kind of filled with lots of wild garden suggestions and meadows and kind of country houses and places like that that you can visit, and just to kind of fill your weekends with lots of lovely garden hunting, which is so perfect for summer as well. So I thought that I would mention this just because I've been having a really good flick through it, and as I said, because they do it by region, obviously I look for Norfolk and Suffolk, and there's just some really lovely recommendations in there, and they do kind of pubs and things like that to recommend as well, so I wanted to include that one. And the next one, for all you interior home lovers like me, I wanted to include this one. This is called Home by Emma Blomfield. It's called The Elements of Decorating. Why this is so lovely though is because it's got so many pictures and illustrations inside, but they're all watercolours. So it kind of gives you lots of inspiration and ideas for the different rooms in your house, but instead of photographs, it's done with watercolour paintings. So for example, it just has lots of really lovely pictures like that in it, just to give you a bit of an idea and a bit of inspiration for the different rooms in your house. But it's just something a bit different to having photographs. I just think it's really pretty just to have lots of different diagrams and ideas, but all done in really kind of nice original paintings. Okay, so a few more recent books, perhaps a few more mainstream books for you. Having said that, I don't really like romance novels. I really wanted to include this one. This is a proof copy, so this isn't the cover, but it's called Before You Go by Claire Swatman. This I read in one day. It is just, as I said, I don't really read romance novels or anything like that, but this one was just such a good read and you wanted to find out what happened, which obviously is a sign of a very, very good book. It's basically a story of two people who are madly in love, but something happens, but it almost tells it from the kind of the start point to the end point, if that makes sense, of their lives. So you're going back in time and you're kind of reliving when they first met and, you know, all the lovely things which have happened to them in their lives to get to the end point, if that makes any sense at all. Basically, what if you lost the one you love but then discover you could save them? If you could alter your past, can you change your future? Very uplifting. Although it is sad, it is a really uplifting story and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that's coming from someone who is not a big romance reader. And the next one is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I know it's on the BBC at the minute. I haven't watched them. I'm saving them up until I have a few hours spare to start watching it from the beginning. But I haven't read this title. I have read one or two other books by Margaret Atwood and loved them. My favourite was Alias Grace. If you haven't read that, it is beautiful. I still think about that book even though I read it years and years ago. So I have high hopes for this one as well. As I said, I have no idea what the story is about. I haven't actually looked on the back of this. I haven't looked at the BBC kind of adaptation, as I said, yet, because I want to kind of either do it all together or read this first and then watch that. But I think a lot of people would have heard of this, so I'm really, really keen to give this a read and then watch the BBC version. Now the next two selections really fit into what I love most in the genre of books. The first one is by Lucy Worsley. I know that she's got quite a few books out. I know that she's bringing out a biography, or she has brought out a biography about Jane Austen, and I just love her as a writer. I think she's a brilliant presenter, and I read a month or so ago A Very British Murder. As I said, if you're not interested in like the history of murder or like, I don't know, our obsession with murder, mysteries if you like, especially when it started back in the kind of 1800s, this is probably not for you. But for me, because I love that whole genre of writing, and because I love the kind of golden age of fiction and the murder mysteries leading up to it, this was such an interesting read. It's got quite a few true crime mysteries which kind of started off our obsession with it, if you like, and she goes into so much detail. She's such a brilliant writer. I mean, the amount of research and kind of books she must have read and places she must have gone to produce this is mind-boggling. But it's just written so well. It's really laid out well. It's just, you could dip in and out of it. You don't have to read the whole thing. Obviously it's divided all by chapters and then kind of by the dates, and it's just a really interesting read. And as I said, if you like that whole thing, then I would highly recommend this. It's not depressing, it's not too gory, it's not, you know, it's not an unpleasant read. But it's just a really well written book and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the next book, which I think is out now, is called A Talent for Murder by Andrew Wilson. Yeah, it came out in May, so it's quite a new book. I have read this and I absolutely loved it. It's basically taking the disappearance of Agatha Christie, which is a true story. She disappeared for 10 days back in 1926 and nobody knows what happened to her. I don't think she's really ever spoken about it, and he's basically created a fictional story based around her disappearance, which did happen for those 10 days. I would highly recommend this. It was right on my street. As soon as I knew it was coming out, I knew that I really wanted to give it a read, so I wanted to include that one. So no doubt you will have seen this on social media because it's just been huge, and it's been, you know, as I said, a real bestseller and no doubt a book that you will have heard of. So I really want to give this a read over the summer. I think it was great for taking on holiday with you and just reading beside the pool as well, a lot like the one I mentioned Before You Go, the romantic kind of novel. So yeah, I thought I'd include this, as I said, just because no doubt you will have heard of it, and I think it sounds a very good book. Okay, the next book is something a little bit different. It's called Bleaker House by Nell Stevens. I think this sounds such a good book to read. It's basically almost like a memoir of hers of when she went to stay on an island for 3 months because she'd been offered a global fellowship in fiction to go and write her first novel, and she in a sense failed to write that novel, and then this is what she produced, which is about trying and ultimately failing to write a novel. I think it's very honest, very candid, but also very funny and uplifting. And if you're wanting to read a book, if you're wanting to write a book, or you're thinking about writing your first novel, I think that this would be a brilliant book to read. As I said, I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited to give that a read. Now the next one actually came out a few days ago. It's called Fierce Kingdom by Gin Phillips. I think this is possibly a debut, possibly. Again, I don't think this is the cover, but this is very topical actually at the minute. It's a very topical book. It's a kind of real psychological thriller. It basically tells the story of a mother and her son who have just, you know, an ordinary day out at the zoo, and then something terrible happens. And I said I don't want to give too much away with it, but it basically then she has to draw on her instincts, and it kind of mirrors that of the animals, and in order to survive, if you like. I read this very quickly. It's a very compelling read. You want to find out what happens. The only thing I would say is it's not the longest book in the world, and I feel like it could have been developed a lot more in places. I feel like it's slightly lacking for such an original and compelling story. I feel like it could have been developed on. That's not necessarily a bad point, it's almost like a good point. Because I enjoyed it so much, I would have wanted to read more into it, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, it is a fantastic read if you like your psychological thriller titles. Okay, so we're nearly down to the last few books. I just wanted to include a few more summer reads. These aren't new books, these are just a couple of books which I really love and I just think I would highly recommend. The other is a little bit like the Lucy Wolseley one. This is called The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher by Kate Summerscale. This is about the murder at Road Hill House. It's based on it is a true story of a murder which happened back in 1860. And it's just a very good story. This is battered, this copy, I think, because this has been all the way to Australia with me. So it's a very battered. I think I actually found it in a bookshop in Australia as well. I think that's where I found it and then started to read it. But it's a brilliant book. You probably will have heard of it because it's very famous. I think the BBC again I think the BBC have had an adaptation of this as well, so I would highly recommend that one. And then the last one is not necessarily this particular book, although it is very good, but for a good summer read, I would always highly recommend Nicholas Evans. Again, it's something that a lot of people have heard of. He is the author of The Horse Whisperer, which I'm sure you will have heard of, but he also has another 4 or 5 other books. I've read all of them. I absolutely love them. They are such good reads. He is the one author which you just completely immerse yourself in his world. He's just, I think personally, he's such a good writer. They're always set in some beautiful ranch somewhere in Montana, or the descriptions of the places are beautiful, and they're very good stories. This one is called The Divide, which I think, again, I read actually when I was travelling quite a few years ago now, and I absolutely loved it. Another one which I loved is called The Smoke Jumper. That is a brilliant book as well. I just wanted to include these and this author just for recommendation for a really good summer read. If you like kind of, they're not, you know, murder mysteries or anything like that, they're more kind of thrilling books, but they're just brilliant to read and brilliant to kind of engage with, and that's exactly what you want, I think, when you're on holidays. I think that is everything. I just have a mountain of books now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As I said, it is something so different for me. I don't think I've ever done anything about books on my channel before, but I feel like it's something different, but also something which I hope that a lot of you are interested in and that you would enjoy. If you did, then please let me know. I could certainly do another 1 or 2 again in the future. Just because I love books, I try and read as much as I can, and I'm always getting new books in. So if you need recommendations, or, you know, perhaps that could become a more frequent video, or if there are other videos that you would like to see, then please do let me know in the comments below. I always love hearing your suggestions. I have to go because I'm just far too hot now. But I will see you all very soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video or if you're new, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye.